So welcome to a Shopify partner session. I think this is our 8th one we've done, and thank you so much for all of you who have registered. I think we had close to 500 people registered for this session. A lot of people from different parts of the world, many of whom will be watching the recording of this, and we'll be sending this to you within the next few days so you can rewatch it. So my recommendation is certainly sit back and watch it, maybe take some notes, but you'll be getting a recording, so if there's anything there that you missed, you can always come back and rewatch it. So don't feel like you'll miss anything. Too important, you can watch it later. And today's partner session, I'm very happy to have Josh Brown with us. And so just a little bit about me. If you've attended a Shopify partner session before, you know that I'm Lev Mejia. I'm running these for Shopify, and I'm a designer advocate at Shopify. So any resources that we can provide you with to get you started on Shopify or to help your freelance business, that's what I'm here for. And you can find a lot of my articles on our Shopify partner blog. And like as I said a little bit earlier, I'm really happy to have Josh Brown with us. He's a developer advocate, and he works on the apps team at Shopify. So we're really lucky to have Josh on board to help us teach us how we can start building our first Shopify app. So Josh, yeah, thanks for having us. And I think I'm going to switch over to you as our presenter. And like I said,
okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, and anyone who's on the call, again, who's new, just joined in, if you have any questions or want to chat about something, you can put that in the questions panel on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar. So with that, I'm going to switch this over and make Josh our presenter. And I think, Josh, you now have access to share your screen. All right, I can see it perfectly. If anyone can't see it, please ping me in the questions, and we'll see what we can do. Like I said, it's being recorded. And with that, Josh, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Levin. Yeah, and I'm super excited to be here today talking about how to build your first Shopify app. I know we've got a huge number of people on the call, so I'm really excited to see so much interest in building Shopify apps. This is an ecosystem that I'm really passionate about. So for those of you who don't know me, which is probably almost all of you, my name's Josh, and I work on the developer relations team here at Shopify. Those are some of the amazing people I get to work with. I'm the awkward person there on the left with the glasses. And yeah, so before I joined Shopify, I was an app developer myself, and I launched 3 different apps within the App Store, one of which did fairly well, and the other 2 were sort of a mixed success. So I absolutely love building apps for Shopify. I'm so glad that everyone's joined us today for this webinar. Cool. So before we sort of get started about how to build the Shopify app, I thought I'd just really quickly introduce the App Store itself. Shopify's App Store is a collection of over 1,500 add-ons for Shopify that add features and integrations to the platform. So things that help merchants with accounting, marketing their store, taxes, analytics, SEO, all kinds of amazing features that help them sell more online and in person. So, and one thing that's really cool about our App Store is that we're not just integrations. So there's lots of great integrations in there that connect Shopify with other systems, but there's also lots of amazing first-party sort of native Shopify-only features that developers have built and listed in our App Store to sell. So I think that's a really cool feature of our developer ecosystem that I love. So a lot of the people I talk to, they're really stoked about building an app, and sometimes they have a hard time finding app ideas. Not everyone is looking to build an app maybe to sell in the App Store and make money. Some people just build apps for fun, and that's totally cool. But a lot of folks that I talk to are looking to build an app that they want to sell and maybe create a business out of it, either a side business or a full-time business, or in many cases, it's scaled to quite large companies, just building apps for Shopify. So I thought we'd talk a little bit today about some strategies that you can use to find great app ideas that merchants will have demand for and merchants will want to buy. So one of the keys to a popular app is that it solves a serious merchant problem that people are willing to pay to have solved. If you're looking to sell an app in the App Store, then it really helps to look for issues that merchants are having or opportunities where you can create a service or a product that can solve a serious problem for them that they're looking to have fixed. So one way you can do that is by participating within the Shopify forums. So the forums are a place where merchants go to chat about their business and often look for ways to make it better and to improve upon their store, to market their store, and to solve problems that they're having. So by participating in those forums, often you can find gaps or issues where an app might be able to solve the problem. And it's good to keep in mind that sometimes merchants aren't necessarily asking for an app. Sometimes it's more they've identified a problem or a concern that they have or an area where they'd like to improve. And then it sort of takes a bit of a leap of imagination to see that as an app that can be solved using the Shopify API. So looking in the forums is definitely something that I did when I was building apps, and I found a few different issues there where I said, you know what, this is a problem that I can use the Shopify API to solve and build an app to solve this problem for merchants. So Shopify has its own message boards that you can check out. Those are at ecommerce.shopify.com. And there's other third-party Slack channels and message boards where merchants hang out and often chat about business. That's a good place to talk with folks about apps that you might want to build or software that could potentially help them out in there as they do business. And one of my most popular apps did come from sort of the Shopify forum, so it's definitely a good place. So another good source of inspiration can be when you're working with merchants to help set up stores. So often app developers also have an agency where they might be helping merchants get set up with an e-commerce site or improve stores that they already have. So maybe not all developers are working with an agency, but if you are, then that's sort of a good way to not only find ideas for new apps as merchants run into opportunities where they want to improve, but also when you have an agency, sometimes merchants are willing to provide feedback on your apps and also sort of be a good sounding board for ideas. So many merchants are happy to help you out. If you're building an app, a lot of them have great input that they can give you as you build out your product. So Shopify also has, I'll plug it here, Shopify Experts. And Shopify Experts is a program for agencies and developers who are interested in accepting work from clients. So if merchants are looking for help with setting up their store, they often go to Shopify Experts Marketplace, and they can find a partner here who will help them set up their store. So if you're not only interested in apps, but you're also interested in helping clients set up stores, Shopify Experts may be something you want to check out if you haven't already. Cool. So a third, I think, source of inspiration for new apps can come from new APIs that Shopify has released. We're continually looking for ways to improve the Shopify platform and make it easier to build really cool software for the App Store that is going to help merchants succeed. So new APIs can be a bit of a frontier where you can sometimes create apps that weren't previously possible, or you can solve a problem that was already being solved, but maybe in a different way or a better way. So it definitely can pay to keep an eye on new APIs coming out from Shopify. Often those APIs can represent an opportunity for a new app or a whole new category of apps sometimes. In this case, Tyler was presenting at just a couple of months ago a new API for analytics. So that's just one example of a new API where a whole new class of apps can be created where they weren't previously possible. Obviously, it really helps if you're building an app that is unique and different from other apps in the App Store. So using new APIs can be a good way to differentiate yourself and set yourself apart from other apps out there. A couple of other new APIs that we recently launched are the Shopify's JavaScript BY SDK, which is a sort of SDK designed to make it easier for you to build client-side functionality to help merchants sell on other sites. And then also the Point of Sale App SDK, which allows you to build features into Shopify Point of Sale. I'll talk a little bit more about the POS App SDK a little bit later. And we also have, just speaking of new APIs, we have a forum at ecommerce.shopify.com where you can keep an eye out for announcements and information about new APIs and enhanced APIs that sometimes you can leverage in a new Shopify app. So that's a good place to keep an eye on or even subscribe to, just to look for inspiration and ideas. Cool. So yet another way that you can sometimes look for opportunities for a first app especially is in an integration. So quite a few of our apps serve to integrate Shopify with another platform. And merchants are continually looking for new integrations and ways to connect Shopify with the world around them. So we have lots of apps that help connect with fulfillment providers, advertising platforms, shipping carriers. There's all kinds of sort of external services that have open APIs, and you can often build an app that will be the glue between Shopify and that third-party service. So maybe you're not Facebook, but you can build an app sometimes that uses the Facebook API to help connect between Shopify and Facebook in a way that's maybe different and solves a different problem. So yeah, so integrations are just another sort of opportunity to think about when you're looking to build your first app. If you're looking for ideas, integrations is definitely something to not overlook. Cool. So then just one other thing to keep in mind when you're looking for good app ideas is that we have lots of amazing apps that enhance the Shopify storefront and add features to the storefront that will connect with the theme and offer features that show up in the client side. And we get lots of amazing apps that come in for the storefront. I think there's so much opportunity there still to build great storefront apps. But sometimes people overlook that the opportunities that exist outside the storefront. So it's good to keep in mind that you can build software for shipping, you can build software for fulfillment. There's lots of back-end opportunities where stores, especially larger stores, can use help with all kinds of back-end operations that may not necessarily show up in the storefront. So storefront apps are great, but then you just want to keep in mind, if you're looking for an idea, there's lots of great opportunities outside of the storefront as well. Cool. So say we've got an idea, we think it might be a real winner. We might want to take a few steps before we build the app to begin validating the idea. So many of you might be familiar with the concept of a minimum viable product. So what you can do with Shopify's App Store is you can actually build an app and submit it to the App Store for the beta category. I think Levin mentioned earlier that someone on the webinar is actually doing that, which is amazing. And we have this beta category for apps that maybe they're very new, maybe it's not everything that the developer is hoping for it to be yet, but maybe it solves the core feature in a way that's really elegant and useful for merchants. So a good way to validate the idea is to build a minimum viable product, launch it perhaps in the App Store under a beta category, maybe at a reduced cost, get lots of merchants using it, and then gather feedback from those merchants that you can use to iterate on your product and make it better over time. So yeah, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. Maybe you don't want to make a perfect product, but maybe it's good just to make a good product that's simple, get it into the App Store in the beta category, gather some feedback, and then improve from there. Cool. So when I was developing apps, one thing that I found especially useful was doing lots of live phone calls and screen shares with users and prospects. So definitely, if you can, make sure that you have a phone number on the App Store listing where merchants can give you a call and prospects can give you a call to chat about the app and sort of the things that they're hoping it will do. I think that a lot of the insight that I got was from just working with merchants one-on-one, chatting with them on the phone. Many merchants were really happy to give me feedback on the types of software that they wanted and sort of ways that my app idea maybe was falling short or maybe it wasn't quite what they wanted. So live phone calls are a really great way to get to know merchants, hear from them about what they want, and get their feedback on the app that you've built or the app that you're building. Great, and then it really helps also to keep in mind the different types of merchants that might fit for your app. One thing I was thinking about earlier was that merchants, sometimes it's not necessary to build an app that is going to appeal to all of Shopify's 275,000 merchants. It makes a lot of sense in some cases just to build an app that fits only a subset of our merchants. So maybe not all merchants are going to be a great fit for your app. Maybe it's just a subset, and that can be a really successful app often. So it's good to think about the different types of stores that will find your app useful, and maybe there's types of stores that won't find it useful, but that can be totally fine. Great, and then I sort of touched on this earlier, but keep in mind that when you launch your app in the App Store, sometimes that can be just the beginning. Merchants can often provide you with great feedback that allows you to iterate on your product and improve it sort of as you gather feedback from them. So for one of my apps, for example, I launched the app in the App Store. Many merchants tried it out. It was in the beta category. And then people came to me and said, you know what, this is a cool app, but it doesn't exactly solve the problem I wanted. Here is what I was looking to do. So yeah, so I mean, it's really, think of launching your app in the App Store as sort of a starting point, and then you can iterate with great merchant feedback. Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about designing your app. I'm not a great designer, but in this section, I'll talk a little bit about sort of creating the UX of your app and different ways that Shopify sort of makes easy to build a user experience that can be really, really great, even if you're not maybe the best designer. So one thing that's pretty important when you're building an app that I've noticed is onboarding. In fact, it's one of the most important things, I think, when you're looking to gain traction in the App Store. So I thought I'd mention a little bit about sort of the onboarding flow. A lot of apps, our most successful apps, many of them follow a certain pattern of onboarding that I think tends to do well. And it's sort of a three-step process. This assumes your app is paid. So merchants will visit the App Store. They might find your listing in the App Store, and then there's a big green Get button. So when they click on the Get button, they'll see a screen that allows them to install your app. So they'll click on Get. They'll see a screen that allows them to install your app. And then they'll see a screen that allows them to start paying for your app. So I'm going to talk a little bit about billing a little bit later, but that sort of flow from Get, install to pay, I think it tends to do really well in the App Store because it's so familiar for merchants. It makes it, many merchants are really used to it. It's a flow that they're familiar with, and it's really easy for them to trust it. And all the UI there is provided by Shopify. Those are sort of Shopify screens that you can use with our billing API to create a simple onboarding flow where merchants install it and then pay. And if your app does require any configuration or setup, then it's really good to include those sort of after the pay option. So I'll talk a little bit more about billing later, but that's just sort of one onboarding flow I wanted to mention because it tends to do well. So another thing to keep in mind when you're sort of setting up the user experience for your app is that, again, on the onboarding note, there are a few technologies that you can use to make it really easy for merchants to install your app and then also uninstall it. So this is one of the things I loved about Shopify when I started building with it. If you are building a storefront app, we have this technology called script tags, which you can use to include JavaScript on your customers' websites. So script tags allow you to add JavaScript to the merchant store without editing the theme files. And it's designed to make it really easy for apps to be compatible with different types of Shopify themes because merchants obviously have all different designs for their stores. But then also it makes it easy for your app to be compatible with other apps that use JavaScript. So it's really common for merchants to have lots of apps installed in their store, and script tags make it easy for you to include JavaScript there without running into compatibility issues with other apps or the theme itself. Another technology that you might want to look at if you're building a storefront app would be app proxies. So application proxies allow your app to render a page within the Shopify store. So for example, joshstore.com/app/counter. So you could that page would be rendered by your app. It would proxy back to your server, and then you can provide Liquid back to Shopify that will allow you to build a really great customer-facing feature that fits with the theme. So it's a bit complicated to explain, but app proxies allow you to build storefront pages that fit with the merchant's theme and make it really easy for them to install and uninstall. And then when it comes to sort of backend services, and especially on the shipping side, we have two APIs that make it really easy for you to set up and uninstall an app. You'll want to keep in mind that if you're building a shipping app, you'll want to take a look at the carrier service API, which allows you to provide rates, shipping rates, and options at checkout. And then also the fulfillment service API, which makes it really easy for merchants to send product data from orders that they want to fulfill back to a third-party warehouse. So if you're connecting Shopify with a third-party warehouse, then fulfillment services make that really easy. And the nice thing about all four of those APIs that I just mentioned is that you can install them automatically using the API, and they also get uninstalled automatically if a merchant decides to remove your app. So it's important to keep in mind the uninstall flow as well as the onboarding flow. So great. So then another thing you'll want to keep in mind as you build your app is it helps if you are aware of the different currencies. Merchants use Shopify from all different locations in the world, and it can be nice to build an app that's aware not just of US dollars, but also like different currencies and different locations. So so you'll just want to be aware of different types of merchants that are installing your app, and try to keep in mind that people may install your app with all different stores. So you'll want to keep that in mind as you design the UX. And so then another point on the onboarding is that it really helps to make the most of your App Store listing page. I'm sure there's plenty of marketers in the crowd, and the App Store listing page is sort of like it's near the top of the funnel. So it's where merchants will have a look at that page. They'll be looking to see if this app helps them out, if it solves their problems. So what you put on that App Store listing page can really, really matter. And Shopify allows you to put screenshots on there. You can also add a video to the App Store listing page, which I definitely recommend. And you can add bullet points and advertising code, in fact, to do remarketing from your App Store listing. And I mentioned it earlier, but I definitely recommend adding a phone number to your App Store listing if you can. What I did when I was building apps was I registered a Skype number, so I just used a Skype phone that went to my cell phone. And then many merchants would phone in and ask me questions about the app to see if it was a fit for them. So definitely make the most of all the different options that you have on the App Store listing page, because it really helps you market your service near the top of the funnel so that merchants can see what it does and how it's useful. A couple things you may want to avoid will be, so if you can, you may want to avoid asking merchants to copy and paste Liquid code into their Shopify theme. So script tags are designed to make it as easy as possible for merchants to install an app without having to copy and paste Liquid or make any complicated theme customizations. So if you can use script tags and avoid asking merchants to customize their theme, then that really helps, because customizing your theme is pretty hard, and not everyone will find that easy. If you do need to ask merchants to copy and paste Liquid, what many app developers do is they offer a setup service so that you can actually ask the developer to help you out with installing the Liquid code. So that's sort of a nice thing you can do if you do have to ask merchants to copy and paste Liquid into their theme. So another thing you can try to avoid would be asking merchants to learn a new UI. So if your app has an admin interface, which almost all apps do, then what you can do is, I'll talk about it in a minute, but you can use our Embedded App SDK to build an app that looks a bit like Shopify. So that's really great, because merchants don't have to learn a new user interface. They don't have to learn a whole new pattern of interacting with the software. They can use the app in a way that's already familiar to them, because it's like Shopify. So On the topic of the Embedded App SDK, I loved this when I was building apps. I used it in almost all of my apps. What it allows you to do is build an app that's actually integrated right inside the Shopify web admin. So this app here is called Order Printer. And as you can see, it's actually right inside the merchant's control panel. And they can access it from the Apps tab of their Shopify admin. And it's right in here. It looks just like a Shopify, other parts of Shopify's admin. And it uses the same sort of user interface as would other parts, like the settings page. And then this is new. So another amazing thing that you can do with embedded apps with Shopify is you can build apps that are embedded inside Shopify point of sale for iPad. So I'll back up there a little bit. You might know that Shopify has an e-commerce service, but we also allow merchants to sell in person in bricks and mortar stores using Shopify point of sale. Shopify point of sale is this really cool iPad app that you can use to accept payments and sell your products in person at your store. So just like you would be selling online. And what you can do is you can build a Shopify app that's actually embedded inside the web, but it's also embedded inside Shopify point of sale app for iPad. So it's kind of like an app within an app. And I'll show you a couple other ways that you can include using the point of sale in a minute. So if you're using the Embedded App SDK, which I strongly recommend, it's pretty easy to set up. Just to include it, you need to use a bit of JavaScript here. Obviously, you'll replace the API key with your own API key. And the shop origin, this will be the store that's logged into your Shopify app at that time. So this page will just go within the user interface. And what it'll allow you to do is it'll allow your app to live inside sort of an iframe of the Shopify admin, like we were looking at earlier. So once the Embedded App SDK is initialized, you can use different UI features of Shopify to make your app admin UI sort of come to life. So in this example here, I'm just showing a menu bar up at the top. As you can see, there is sort of a breadcrumb here. There's a third level of navigation, and there's backwards and forwards buttons. Maybe you've got a list of products and people want a page between them. You can do that using our Embedded App SDK. And you can also show primary buttons like this one. So really similar to what we have elsewhere in the admin. And it sort of helps your app look exactly like the rest of Shopify, just like a built-in feature. So it's really nice that way. The Embedded App SDK also allows you to use modals. So you can create modals that look sort of just like Shopify. And you can use buttons, you can make it full size. And these modals also work within embedded apps for point of sale. So pretty cool way just to look like Shopify. If you need a confirm modal or anything like that in your app, you can use the Embedded App SDK to do that. So a lot of apps need to give feedback to the merchant, either when something successfully happened or when something fails. And sort of our flash notices allow you to do that. And these messages look just like the ones that Shopify uses. So if something failed, you can use sort of an error message that looks like that. Unicorn could not be created. And then there's another one here. So for more successful ones, it'll show up in black or actually dark gray. And those look just like the rest of the Shopify admin. Great. So if a merchant has apps installed in their point of sale, this is sort of what the tab looks like. And another cool feature of Shopify apps that I wanted to mention here was that you can include certain links within the admin or within point of sale that will allow merchants to access your app without going to the apps tab. So in this case, you can actually create a link through the partners dashboard within the iPad app that will allow merchants who are selling something here from this screen to access your app just by clicking the apps tab. And then they can click on this button and it could fire a modal so that your app could take an action here. So in this case, it might be useful for product bundles if you wanted to allow merchants to choose a whole bunch of different products and add it to cart really quickly when they're in the store. You can build an app to do that pretty easily using the point of sale add to cart action. So another link you can create within point of sale would be the edit cart action. And this is really useful for applications that want to allow merchants to create discounts for people who are selling in person. So if you wanted to apply a discount to the cart, you could do that really easily using the edit cart action. And it would also be great for things like sales commission or loyalty programs. So there's a whole lot you can do with the edit cart action. And it shows up right here when a clerk or when the store owner has been adding things to the cart within Shopify point of sale for the iPad. Great, and then there's one last link that you can set up within the Shopify point of sale, and that would be the completed order action. And that shows up, I sort of missed it there, but it shows up after the merchant has checked out, after the order is complete. There's a button there for apps, and you can place a link there, which the merchant or the store clerk can click on to access your app and fire either a modal or a full page view where they can act upon sort of the information that's just happened. So you could use this for post-sale surveys or custom order printing, receipt printing, really useful for all kinds of post-sale actions that would happen in the store. Great, so another thing that I really love about the Shopify community and the Shopify developer community is that there is a huge number of third-party app developers who are sharing code through open source. So there are two libraries that different developers have built that you can use in your own app to help your app look more like the Shopify admin. So there's just two here I want to give a shout out to. The first one will be the Shopify Embedded App Frontend Framework. And what this allows you to do is just sort of use cards and other fonts and other elements that look like Shopify within your app, because the Embedded App SDK goes only so far there. And another library that's very similar and allows you to include UI elements that make your app look like Shopify would be Uptown CSS. So this one is from Shoppad, and this was released very recently. So two really cool open source libraries you might want to consider using when you're designing your Shopify app. And they're open source, so you can check them out on GitHub. Awesome. So as far as building your app on the backend goes, Shopify has two official libraries. One is in Ruby and one is in Python. So you can find those on GitHub at github.com/Shopify. And so yeah, so we have two official libraries, but folks build their apps in all kinds of different languages. People build apps in Node.js and PHP, which is the language I used. Go. There's all kinds of different languages that are being used to build Shopify apps. So you can use the Python or Ruby libraries from Shopify, or there are plenty of third-party open source libraries that you can use to build your app. And of course, you can build your own library if you want to for pretty much any language that you like to use. Shopify's API is completely REST, so if you've used other APIs on the web, you might find it very familiar because it's a lot like the Twitter API or many other popular APIs that are out there. Cool, so what I'll do here is I'll just go into a quick example of building an app with Shopify's Ruby library. I mentioned that we have a Ruby library, but we also have a sort of Shopify App Generator, which uses Ruby on Rails. And this is pretty cool because it allows you to build a generate a very simple app that using Ruby on Rails that pretty quickly that you can use sort of as a base to build upon if you're using Ruby on Rails. So here I'll do a super quick example to show you kind of what that looks like with Ruby on Rails. Cool, so what I'm going to do here is just create a new Rails project. Awesome, so what I'm going to do now is just add Shopify app to the gem file. and Shopify of the Rails generator that you can use to sort of create a Shopify app using Ruby on Rails. And it's on GitHub, so you can check it out there. Cool, so I'm going really fast here, and I've kind of set it up a little bit beforehand. So it's not going to be quite this easy probably when you're developing, but I'm just using this to show you sort of how the Shopify App Generator works. So I just added Shopify App to my Ruby project. So now what I'm going to do here is use the generator to generate the app code. And what I'm actually going to do is, what I'll need to generate my app is I'll need to go into the Shopify Partners dashboard and grab my API key and secret. So I've already created a Shopify app. I did cheat a little bit before the webinar. So this is my app here. And I created it within my Shopify Partners dashboard. If you don't have a Partners account, you can create one from developers.shopify.com. They're completely free. And what they allow you to do is to create and register different apps within the Partners dashboard. Once you create an app in the Partners dashboard, then you'll get an API key and secret that you can use to create an app. And then you can also submit your app to the App Store for testing. So cool. So what I'm going to do here is just grab the secret and the API key. So that's the API key. The API key is not a secret. It's public, so you don't need to worry about that. The secret you will typically is under here under credential set. So this one you're going to want to keep a secret when you're building your own app. Don't share it with other people, and make sure that it's always protected and not made available. Cool. So what's just happened here is Shopify app has generated a basic controller. It's a really simple controller. We'll take a look at it in a second. And what it's going to do is just show us a list of our products. So it's just generated some very simple sample code. You can configure the generator to do different things. It can generate sort of different controllers based on what you're looking to do. You can also use it to configure script tags and webhooks. So if you want to register a script tag when the merchant installs your app, you can use Shopify app to automatically add those script tags in when the merchant installs their app. So that's kind of easy, kind of makes it really simple to include a script tag on app install if that's what you want to do. Cool. So another thing it's going to do here is just create a really simple database with the shop. So obviously, if you're running a Shopify app, you will want to have a database of some sort where information is there about the merchants and possibly other things, but most of all, you'll want to know the merchants that are using your app. So cool. So I've done that, and what we're going to do now is just start the app. Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to go over to our App Store listing. So this is the app that I created in the Partners dashboard. And what I'm going to do is click Edit App Store Listing. If you were submitting your app to the App Store, this is where you'd go to add information about your app. You can fill in different marketing information, graphics for the App Store listing, as well as a short description, YouTube video if you want to have a video, a full description, pricing, support information, that's where I would put a phone number, screenshots, and any other information you want to include about your app on the App Store page. This is where it would go. And this is also where you would go to submit your app for testing. So once your app is ready and you're ready to submit it to the App Store, you could just click on Submit for Publication. And This will begin the process of testing the app so that our team will have a look at it and we'll test it out, see how it works, and then hopefully publish it in the App Store. So what I've done since I've launched my app, I'm going to go into View App Listing, and I'm going to click on the Get button. Cool, so here it says install the app. So this would be the first step, and all I'm going to do here is click install. Notice here you can see the different permissions that my app has. You can configure your app to require different permissions from the merchant. What you'll want to do when you're building your app is obviously minimize the number of permissions you ask for. In this case, we're asking for read permission to orders and products. You could also ask for write permission to create products. You could ask for write permission to shipping rates to provide shipping options. So there's a wide range of different settings you can configure there to ask for permissions from the merchant. Cool, so here we have the embedded app, and there's two products here. So all it does is list the products. So it's using the Shopify API to list products from my store in the app. And that's all it's doing. It's a super simple app, but that's what you get when you use the Shopify App Generator. And then you can go from here to use, you could modify this app to include a script tag. You could modify it to register fulfillment services. So it's sort of a starting point where if you're using Ruby on Rails, Shopify App Gem is a really great way to get started and to build off of. Cool. So anytime you build sort of an app for anything really, obviously security is a pretty serious issue. It's especially important, I think, when you're using a Shopify app because merchants are trusting you with super important data that you'll want to keep safe and protect from security issues. So I'm not going to go too deep here into all of the various security issues that could come up with an app. I'll just mention a couple. One really great resource that you can go to learn about application security would be the OWASP website. I think it stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. And they've got a whole bunch of really awesome resources there and cheat sheets that help you sort of learn about different security issues that can come up and sort of ways to test your app for security problems. So one I did want to mention is that cross-site scripting issues can crop up. So you'll want to keep in mind that a lot of the string data that you get back from the Shopify API, it could include malicious JavaScript in it. So if you're rendering strings that came in from the Shopify API anywhere in your application, you'll just want to keep in mind that you'll want to filter that data and escape it so that merchants will be safe from malicious JavaScript that could come in from sort of any source. And that might be sort of more obvious when it comes to things like the shipping address, which is provided by the customer. But we should also be careful about things like the product data, because it could be that the merchant is running like a marketplace where folks can create their own products. So really almost any string that comes back from the Shopify API, you should be very careful about and take precautions based on your programming language and your framework to make sure that those strings are filtered appropriately, because almost all of them will be user input. Cool, and then so for authentication, I just thought I'd mention that authentication, it can be a bit challenging for a lot of folks who are building their first app. I know I found it difficult. And there are a lot of really great libraries out there that you can use to help get through sort of the authentication process. So Shopify uses OAuth for authentication, which is sort of the install process when a merchant is installing their app. And there are lots of great libraries out there that you can use, like OmniAuth, that will make the process a lot easier. So if you're looking to build a Shopify app, I would definitely suggest using an existing OAuth library if you can. And if you're not using an existing OAuth library, if you're building it yourself, definitely take a close look at the OAuth documentation on the Shopify website, because it provides information about how you can verify the redirects that come from Shopify, and different precautions that you can take to make sure that the authentication process is really secure and safe. So if you are building it from scratch, definitely take a look at the OAuth documentation, and especially the verification section, which will provide you with information about how you can verify those redirects. Great. So as far as getting published in the Shopify App Store, I sort of showed you the page earlier where you can submit your app for testing. Actually, maybe we'll do that. So get ready to submit for publication. Once your app is ready, you can just sort of click on this button here, and you can submit it here for testing. And what will happen is there's a sort of a checklist here that you can read to learn about the different requirements for getting an app listed in the App Store. I would actually recommend checking out this checklist sort of before you build your app, just because it can give you sort of good information that you don't want to waste time about doing the testing process. So definitely take a look at the app review checklist before you build your app if you can. And when you're ready to submit your app, you can just find this page here from the partner's dashboard and submit to the publishing queue. Cool. So now what's going to happen is someone from our apps testing team will take a look at the app, and they will try it out. They'll look for any bugs or issues, and they'll look to make sure it complies with this checklist. And then if it's all good, they'll publish it right away in the App Store for you. So that's sort of how you submit your app to the App Store for testing. And if you have any questions about whether or not your app is going to meet the checklist before you build it or as you're building it, definitely feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to give you my email address at the end of this talk, and you can also reply to the webinar email, because we're happy to go over it with you and chat about the app you're building and sort of any requirements you have questions about. We can talk about those ahead of time. Cool. So really briefly about monetizing your app. A lot of merchants, like I said, a lot of developers do want to charge for their apps in the App Store. We've tried to make it as easy as we possibly can with billing through Shopify. So we talked earlier about the onboarding flow where a merchant will click on the Get button, they'll click on Install, and then they'll pay for their app. So when they pay for their app, the really nice part of this, and I loved this when I was building apps, is that Shopify actually collects the money from the merchant. The merchant sees that fee on their Shopify invoice every month, and then they pay Shopify, and then Shopify pays the developer share of the revenue through PayPal automatically. So this is a really, really nice system because merchants don't need their credit card to pay for their app. Developers don't need to worry about collecting money from merchants. It's just a really easy way for you to monetize your app and make it easy for merchants to buy it and for you to collect money from them. It's just fantastic and easy, and I love it. So if you can, a lot of apps have a free trial. This can be a good way to, especially if you have a monthly fee app, if your app charges every month, then a free trial can be a good way to let merchants give it a try without the risk that they may not like it or the risk that any concerns that they might have. A free trial sort of helps them feel more comfortable with installing an app that might cost money. And so a lot of developers build apps that have recurring charges. So I'm not sure if you caught that when I'm going through the billing onboarding flow earlier, but when a merchant pays for an app, they can agree to pay for a recurring app charge, which is incurred every month and will show up every month on their Shopify invoice, unless it's canceled by the developer or the app is uninstalled. So it's really popular for developers to build apps that have recurring charges. Another cool thing you can do, and this is very new, is you can create fees that are variable. So you can allow a merchant to accept a charge of, for example, up to $100 per month, and then your app can tell Shopify every month exactly how much of that $100 was consumed. So, for example, if your app is sending emails and maybe you charge I don't know, 1 cent per email, probably expensive, but you can have a variable fee so that you can tell Shopify exactly how much your app was used and then charge the fee based on usage. So variable fees are very new. I think it's a really cool feature and a really neat way for developers to monetize their apps in ways that weren't previously possible. And you can also create one-time fees using Shopify. So if your app is just a one-time charge, maybe it is a one-time improvement to their theme, or a one-time SEO scan, or an image compression app. You can use one-time fees as well. So if you want to charge a one-time fee to a Shopify invoice, you can use the API to do that. Awesome. So thank you so much for coming today to the webinar. That's my email address there at the bottom. So if you have any questions for me, I'd love to hear about what you folks are building. So definitely feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions about our APIs or the App Store or listing in the App Store. I just love hearing about the things you're building. So definitely feel free to reach out to me after the webinar. And if you have any questions now, definitely feel free to enter those into the GoToWebinar chat. I don't think I can see them, but Levin should be able to see the questions, and hopefully he can read a few of them out for us.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. I know I personally learned a lot, and I've been working on apps for a couple of years. So there's always something new. I think the resources, I think the uptowncss.com resource, which is super new, is good, and the variable billing is really great as well. So thanks so much again for sharing it. And we do have some questions, actually. We actually have quite a bit, and I'll read them out. So I think we have about like 10 minutes left, so we'll try to get through as many as we can. This one, the question is, can the Shopify Scripts app be modified via the Shopify API as to integrate an app with the scripts, or would you not recommend this?
Sure. So script tags. So I think the question is about sort of script tags, which is the API that I mentioned that allows you to add scripts, JavaScript, to a merchant storefront. So what you can do is you can add a JavaScript file to the merchant storefront, and it'll be loaded asynchronously on the page. And it'll be loaded actually on every page of the merchant storefront. But your app can delete that file at any time, or replace it, so you can definitely delete that file or replace it with a different one. Anytime your app needs to do that, you can do that using the script tag API.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We have one here from Bobby. I think those are more like a two-part question, so I'll just read it out and maybe he can clarify if he has some questions. He said, is it appropriate to have service-oriented storefront, maybe selling templates? And by that, he meant liquid templates.
So, I mean, you could possibly have a Shopify store that sells that type of service. We wouldn't accept. It wouldn't be something that we'd be able to list in the App Store, just because the App Store is more about sort of products rather than services. But if you have any specific questions about like a particular app idea that you'd like to look at for the App Store, definitely follow up with me afterwards. I'm just gonna move this so you can see, and we can definitely chat about your idea.
Cool. So we have another one here. This one comes from, and I apologize for the bad pronunciation, Kushagra, I believe. Again, I apologize if that's really bad pronunciation. But he says, or she says, how does one optimize their app as to not affect the web page load time, especially when using script tags? Some personalization apps like LimeSpot take very long to load.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one of the things that I like about script tags is that they are loaded asynchronously. So they're loaded, and I might have to sort of look into this a bit more, but they're loaded, I think, asynchronously in a way that they don't block actually everything else that's loading on the page. So that's a really great thing about script tags is that they do load. They're not blocking the rest of the page from loading. They sort of load as everything else is loading as well. So I think script tags are pretty good for performance, but other things you can do is obviously you can optimize your JavaScript and you can compress it and minify it. So there are steps you can take there sort of to reduce the size of the JavaScript, but it's a good question because, of course, too much JavaScript on a web store can hurt page time. So yeah, those are just a couple things you can do.
Okay, great. And this one comes from Juan Cabrera. He says, is Python like Django, like Ruby on Rails? So that's more of a general question, more from the dev side. So is Python,
yeah, exactly. Right. So our Shopify's first party library is just I think it's just Python, but you could totally use Django to build an app. You can use PHP or Node. There's all kinds of different great frameworks you can use. But our first party libraries are in Ruby and in Python.
Cool, awesome. We have one here from Peter, and he says, is it possible to develop apps with just HTML, CSS, jQuery, and APIs?
So that's a really good question. Almost, Peter. It's really close. I mean, you will need to use a little bit of server-side code, just because your app does need to be hosted somewhere. A lot of folks host their app on places like Heroku or Google Apps. So you will need a little bit of server-side code, and it could be the Ruby on Rails framework that I just sort of very briefly showed, or it could be PHP, or it could be Node, but you will need a bit of server-side code there just to back it up.
Cool. We have a couple of questions about gems for the front-end libraries that you mentioned, like Uptown, CSS, and the other one. I don't believe there's a gem, but you can correct me if I'm wrong with that one.
Right, yeah. So Uptown CSS is this really cool library that was one of our partners released. They released it just a couple of weeks ago, I think. The partner is called Shopify. They build amazing apps, by the way. And so it's not a gem per se, but it's like a library that you could use on the front end to sort of make your user interface look more like the Shopify admin. And if you take a look at them on GitHub, it's just if you just Google Uptown CSS, you should be able to find it, and you can sort of see what I mean in that it sort of helps your app look more sort of like the Shopify admin. It looks like a really great resource, I think.
Nice. Then we have a question: is what database is it? Is it SQLite?
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. Great question. So in my example there, I was just using SQLite, but I mean, obviously in a production application, you probably want to use something else. And you can use, any database that you like. It's completely up to you. That was a very brief example. Mm-hmm. So
we have one here. Says, is there any copy and paste command lines that people can have? I think we have some documentation for that where they can find those. But you can.
Yeah, exactly. So on GitHub, if you go to Shopify on GitHub, you can find the Shopify app gem. And there on the README file, there's sort of the steps that I just went through. Those are all there for you. So you can sort of learn step by step there how to do exactly what I did and load that app in a really basic Ruby on Rails app for Shopify. There's also a video there, which one of my coworkers made. He maintains the gem. So there's a video there as well if you find that helpful.
Nice. I find this one to be a good question, and I think it comes from Ronan. Can I add permissions in the future? How does it look like for the merchant? So I guess it's like you first ask for one permission, can you ask for further down the road?
Definitely, and that's a great question. So totally, if you are asking for new permissions, all you'll want to do is just send the merchant through the OAuth flow again, and then ask for, just add the scope to your app. And I didn't talk too much about how that works. If you go to our OAuth documentation, you can sort of learn about the different scopes, which are sort of the permissions that merchants can ask for. But you can add the permissions anytime, and they'll see a screen that looks just like the install screen if you're adding new permissions. And it will ask them, do you agree to give this developer write access to your themes or whatever, whichever permission you're asking for. If you're reducing the permission, so if you're taking away a permission you don't need anymore, then I don't think the merchant does not see any screen at all. So.
Cool. All right, I'm just being kicked out of the room here that I'm in, but we're running to the end of our session here now. So we have some further questions. I'll revise these. We'll put in some resources into our email that we'll be sending out. But like again, I said, thanks, Josh, for doing this for us. I said we'll have a recording with the listings there as well to the documentation. So with that,
awesome. Thanks everyone.
Josh, and thanks everyone again for attending. And I'll talk soon.